The top story at this hour concerns you if you have gone ahead to take the Covishield vaccine or are planning to do that. Well, the gap between the two doses of Covishield vaccine should now be increased from 28 days to 6 to 8 weeks for better results. That's what the government has now written out. Remember, this is something that has been talked about by various experts in various studies and journals as well. And now the government of India has acknowledged that and written into states and union territories asking them to do the same. So remember, the gap between two doses so far we thought was only going to be 28 days. But now if you have taken Covishield, that's the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, then the government says the gap should be increased to 6 to 8 weeks for better results. Now, the instructions has gone out in the middle of round 2 of nationwide vaccinations in which people above 60 and those with illnesses above 45 are being inoculated. The revised interval, remember, applies only to the Serum Institute of India Covishield, the vaccine developed by Oxford and AstraZeneca, not to the Bharat Biotech Covaxin. That's what the centre also underlines. Now, the gap between the two doses earlier, like I said, was 28 days. Now they're saying increase it to 4 to 8 weeks. All right, let's move on and get in a word actually from Dr. Sumit Ray, HOD for Critical Care Medicine at Holy Family Hospital in the National Capital. Thank you, Dr. Sumit Ray. Welcome back to NDTV. This is something, we've been discussing on our various COVID platforms at for several period now, for a long period really, trying to talk about how the gap between the two vaccines when it comes to Covishield needs to increase. Could you take our viewers through how does the tech on this work and why this is so important?
So actually the evidence for this was there from the beginning in terms of when the major paper for the AstraZeneca vaccine came, the Covishield vaccine came. They suggested after that and in their insert also that the gap should be at least 8 weeks, maybe going up to 12 weeks. Because the efficacy at 4-week interval was only 54%, while if taken after 12 weeks, it increases to nearly 80%. And after 8 weeks, it's somewhere in the 70s. Right, and we had been suggesting for a long time, at different forums, that it should be increased to at least 8 to 12 weeks because the trigger of the immune response improves with a gap in the time period. And I would suggest that rather people who have taken the first dose should go for the second dose only after 8 weeks, because the difference in the immune response, even between 6 and 8 weeks, there is a fairly significant difference. So the later the better, going up to 12 weeks.
All right. So the question here that comes to mind, when we had some viewers actually write in, and I just want to debunk any myths over here. This is not because India has done short of these vaccines and that's why we've increased the time frame. There's actually a tech behind this. Just want to clear that out for our viewers.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, different speakers and I myself have spoken on NDTV and other channels about delaying the second dose. Actually, technically, it is better to give the dose later. This was part of the vaccine's insert even from the beginning, actually. And we had suggested that. And this has been suggested and that's why in Great Britain also they are giving it after 8 to 12 weeks. And that is what it should be. It's not because we are running short of vaccines, not because of that reason.
So, all right, so there seems to be a global phenomena which India is also adopting now. Since you're talking about Covishield, Dr. Ray, wanted to understand from you, we're looking at a spike in the country at the moment in pockets. A lot has been talked about the new mutant as well, whether it is ingrown, it is an India new mutant that has come up, or this is part of those 400 cases. Last time we got the data really from Health Ministry was about a week ago when they said some 400 mutations of viruses from South Africa, say for example from UK and other places had been, the genome sequencing of those cases were done in the country. We know very specifically that Covishield does not work on the South Africa variant. South Africa actually sent that back to us. So in a situation like this, are we in a position where India needs to have a re-look at the vaccines, perhaps invite other manufacturers as well, open it up for all?
I would suggest that there should be an option for more vaccines that the government should look at. And also the fact is, it's not necessarily that it's the South African variant which is causing this spread. It may be just basically a resurgence of the similar virus or with different slight mutations, etc. is absolutely possible. It's also to do with opening up the economy, people traveling, meeting, working, etc. It's not just the different variant. Having said that, even for the South African variant, what has been found with most of the vaccines is that the severity of illness is significantly reduced in those who take the vaccine, even if they get the disease. So, but having said that, we do need to look at other options of vaccines which are there in the market and not stick to only the two that we have, and keep an eye on the science behind it and which are the vaccines which are doing better with the variants. But again, also we must realize that there will be more mutations and more variants coming up. So should we keep, jumping from one vaccine to another? That also has to be considered, looking at the logistics for the country, vaccinating the number of people. Also, one needs to realize that if we vaccinate fair percentage of the population and there is some significant amount of seropositivity, that itself will reduce transmission. But we need to carry on with our COVID appropriate behavior. That is also remains, that is even more reason to carry on with our COVID appropriate behavior.
Actually, I'm quite glad that you mentioned seropositivity, because that's really a question on everybody's mind. We are seeing a resurgence and sort of a spike in cases in places where there is a significant amount of seropositivity. Look at Pune, for example, the national capital, Bengaluru, other places. I mean, and this time we are speaking to you where you are in the national capital. Are you seeing any different behavior, different traits perhaps this time when the spike is happening, or is it just like last time around?
So it's still now significantly less than the peak that we saw in, between June and October, November. So the numbers are still significantly lower. What we are also finding, but it's early days, seems like from what word I've had with our colleagues across the country and our own experience, is that this time it seems to be a little less severe. The case fatality rate seems to be a little less at this present moment. But seropositivity, as you said, high seropositivity does not stop transmission completely. It surely reduces it. Okay, so combination of seropositivity and vaccine will significantly reduce it. But if we expect that COVID is going to go away from our lives, even with fairly large percentage of the population being vaccinated and combination of seropositivity, we will be deluding ourselves, because COVID will be there, but the numbers will be less. My feeling is that there will be these bumps and jumps, and some little surges up and down will continue off and on at certain points of time in certain urban centers. It is, by its very definition, pandemics are majorly urban specific. Spreads are more because of the dense population. So it's not going to go away, but these are bumps and surges we will see. We will continue to see off and on. Some will be higher than the others and some will be small bumps.
All right, so time to brace ourselves for that. Thank you, Dr. Sumit Ray, for joining us with the very latest.